What's up, guys? We are back with another video, and this one is going to be exhausting. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's JP from Edge Autosport. Thanks for joining us. We're back with another video, and today we're doing something we've done before already, but on a different platform. We're working on Project Half Cent today, which is our 2016 Ford Focus ST, sitting right over here to my right. We have a bunch of exhaust systems going on the car. So the reason why we do this is, well, first of all, it is going to be exhausting. There's a lot of work involved, even though it's not really, hard work. It's just a lot of work. But exhaust systems are something we get asked about all the time. Which is the best exhaust system I should buy? And there's really no answer to that question. Like, we can't answer that question for anybody ever accurately. The only person that can answer it is you. That's because exhaust systems are completely subjective. The main idea behind getting exhaust is getting exhaust that sounds good to you. Some people get really terrible sounding exhaust and they think it sounds great. Okay, that's cool. But that's your thing, and it can only be your thing. So anyway, we have right here 8 examples of Catback exhaust systems. I'll name them here really quick. We got the Cobb Catback, Injen Catback, an AWE track system, which is non-resonated. We have the Borla exhaust right here. The other AWE Catback with a resonator, it's the touring model. And then we have a Greddy exhaust, MBRP. MBRP sells a few different exhausts. This is the aluminized, I think is the term that they use. But I got it because this is the least expensive one, and it is a really super popular one because of that, because it's just a super good value. But it kind of follows the same path and has the same general construction as the other exhausts that they have in 409 and 304 stainless steel. So I just kind of wanted to compare a bunch of 304 stainless systems to this aluminized steel system. And then we have an AFE power exhaust as well. So we're going to break this up into 2 parts, because at the time that we're shooting this video, we really only have time for about half of these. So we're going to do 4 of these first in a part 1, and then 4 in a part 2. So look out for that part 2 coming up eventually here pretty soon. But we're going to knock out 4 of these today. We're going to give you sound clips of all of them, of startup, cruising with light throttle or part throttle, wide open throttle, idle, all that sort of stuff. And we're going to show you pictures of the tips and just like all of the construction as we install it and everything, when they're nice and pretty and brand new, before they get all heated up and change color and all that fun stuff. So anyway, hope you enjoy this video. I know that on our Project FC3 video, where we did 7 exhausts in one video, we had a ton of really, really good feedback on that. So I'm sure this is going to be great stuff for you guys. Hopefully you like it. Let us know what you think in the comments. As always, subscribe, hit that little bell for notifications, and let's get going. Take a walk around the factory exhaust real quick, just so I can give you kind of a rundown on what this thing is. This is all one piece, by the way, which makes it a real pain in the butt if you want to keep it all intact to take off. So I'll talk about that in just a second. But when you're taking this off, just go ahead and take off this subframe and this little kind of cross brace right here. Just remove those 2 so you can have easy access to everything. You probably wouldn't have to remove this one, but we're just going to remove it. It's just a few bolts, so just to make it easier to get to these bolts over here. This is the factory resonator. It's obviously really big and heavy, so that contributes to the weight and the sound deadening, obviously. And then if you go back here, this is where it gets tricky. If you want to keep your factory exhaust, then you like punishment, because you have to take off this entire rear subframe because this pipe snakes up over it and then comes back down back here and into the muffler. So I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard of a guy doing that for just an exhaust. That it's pretty ridiculous. And I mean, most people don't. You're not going to like take the exhaust off the car when you go to sell it or anything. You know, I guess you would if you didn't have to do this, but it's just one of those things you have to just kind of chalk it up and say, well, I'm leaving the exhaust on there once I put it on. So anyway, this is the big exhaust, or the big muffler. This thing is huge. This really is what deadens the sound, obviously, the most. This is just packed with a bunch of sound deadening material in here. Super heavy, really big, and this is probably the biggest contributor to just the overall weight of the exhaust being way more than anything we're probably going to put in. We'll actually do some weight comparisons as well, so we can show you how much weight you're saving by any one of these exhausts. So yeah, we got some hangers in here. Nothing pretty, but we'll just get going on taking this thing off and get going on exhaust number one. We have to cut off, basically, you know, we'll probably cut off, I think right here makes the most sense. I don't know, we'll cut one of these sides, whatever makes the most sense for the amount of space we have. So let's get going. We are, I mean, it'll rip off at the very least. If you don't already, we've said this before, we'll say it again. If you can rent or borrow this tool, or if you feel like buying it, it makes getting these hangers off a hell of a lot easier than using your hands. There she blows.
Start it like this.
So our first exhaust is actually going to be that. This is what we're going to go out and test. We know a lot of you guys really enjoy doing this sort of thing, so we're going to show you what it sounds like. No, we're not. Okay, you can see it's super loose right now. There's plenty of movement in like the bushings or this bracket that holds on the hanger brackets on the exhaust. There's plenty of movement in that flex section in the downpipe. So it's pretty easy to just kind of get those studs right out of there just like that. But yeah, I'll just let this hang here and get a free set of hands to help me lower this thing down once I remove that hanger. So, and actually it's probably not the best idea to let it hang there for too long, because if that hanger, you know, you just don't want to ruin your hanger if you're going to reuse the hanger. So anyway, we're going to get this thing off here. One more thing to do and it'll be off. So you can see how you kind of have to snake this thing through. This might not actually be the best way to cut it. It's going to be able to be done with us because we're on a lift. So if you're not on a lift, it actually might be better to take it off pre-subframe, to cut it pre-subframe. Because there's no way you'd have this kind of flexibility and this kind of movement if you're doing this on the ground. So just be aware of that. All right, I'm gonna go get the scale so that we can weigh this thing. see how much weight we are changing out to. All right, and 19.6, so that's exactly, what is that, 40 pounds? No, 45 pounds.
It's 25, 24
yeah.
plus.
No, 35 pounds. 45 pounds. We math a lot over here. 45 pounds, 19.4 plus 24 point, or 19.4 plus 24.4, so 44.8 pounds. 43, I don't know. I'm too sweaty and hot and tired already to do this math. All right, so on Project FC3, we kind of drew some exhausts out of a hat. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to kind of pick out 4 exhausts that we're going to do on part 1. So today we're going to do the Cobb exhaust, which comes in a gigantic box. Good luck getting that in your car if you're picking it up from anywhere. The AWE track version, so that should be the louder, kind of more aggressive version. The Injen and the Borla. We'll do those 4 today, and then we'll do the other 4 in part 2. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick out what I want to end up with on our car, and maybe not necessarily like, you know, I don't know, you guys might think one of these is better sounding than the one that I end up with, but I'm going to pick the one that I know is probably going to be the one I want to end up with, which I'll leave that towards the end so that we can give you a little bit of something to look forward to. So Cobb Tuning, we love the guys over at Cobb. They make awesome stuff. So we saw a lot of these exhausts, so we'll start off with this one. It's really because I just want to get the huge box out of the way. All right, so here's the Cobb. Comes pretty nicely packaged. Okay, so here's the necessary goods. It looks like they actually want you to change out one of the hangers here, so they include that in the kit, and then you got all the gaskets to put everything together. Looks like they do have a gasket for where it meets the downpipe, so that's good. All new hardware, you don't have to reuse anything. So there you go. And a little Cobb sticker too. We all love stickers. All right, so there's the first pipe. Obviously this is the main one. You can tell why Cobb is going to be a very, if it's not mild, it's at least very smooth, because they've got these resonators in place that really help control sound. So for the guys that like very controlled sound, smooth sound, maybe a little bit quieter, this is definitely the type of exhaust for you, I can tell already. All right, so here's the rear tip section. The fancy part. You can see that this is most likely a lot of machine welding. You can definitely tell at the flange it's very machine welded, which is nice. I mean, it's going to be precise, it's going to be accurate, it's going to be nice looking at the very least, but it's more than nice looking on this one for sure. Nice thick stainless flanges, polished tips. So yeah, this is a nice kit, and 304 stainless, so good stuff. That new hanger is definitely not for what we did. So I'm screwing this up big time. I think I know what I'm doing, but I don't. Truth is, I never work on cars, so. So I don't think we need to remove the factory bushing on that. I think that goes on one of these hangers, because there's kind of like there's like a ghost hanger in here, or like a ghost hanger rod in here that it wasn't hanging anything when I pulled off the factory exhaust, but I would imagine since this has 2 hangers on it, one of them's probably gonna go right here and the other might go up there, and that's what that extra one is for. So we'll use that. We'll get the factory one back on. Okay. Shit. Okay, so just FYI, if you want to do the Cobb one or anything that's going to be exactly like it, which usually they're all a little bit different, The hanger that goes through to here really had, you know, we had to kind of crunch the heat shielding back there and kind of yank it back a little bit. It's not too bad. You can probably put it back. So, but anyway, that's what we had to do to get this one in. So I'll kind of crunch this back into place, and then we'll be good. So sometimes you'll tighten everything down, and with these nice quality kits, for the most part, they end up pretty centered. But you can see this is a little bit off to the right, and that's just simply because of where this thing is sitting in the hangers. And we still have to tighten up this flange a little bit. So, you know, at the very back, I would say maybe leave the back section for last to just make your final adjustments and kind of swing it over to where you need it to be and then tighten it down. So that's what we'll do, and then we'll be done. So just right off the bat, this thing is pretty mild. Now keep in mind we have a stock downpipe on the car, so full stock Cat. So it's not going to be the most aggressive sound. Even if we had the most aggressive exhaust, it's not going to be the loudest it could be. But with that said, you know, I know a lot of you guys are watching this video to see what these things sound like just by themselves without upgrading your downpipe. So this one is super mild. It's noticeable, it's there, but it's not raspy, it's not loud. It's very OEM-ish, almost kind of like a European OEM type of sound on like the sportier, high-end European stuff. So it's just got a really nice, smooth, good tone. So nothing crazy, but you know, it's Cobb. This is what Cobb does. This is typical Cobb. This is how they like it. You know, for good reason. I personally like this type kind of exhaust. It can get louder if you upgrade the rest of the exhaust system, but this is a pretty nice setup. It's perfect. Honestly, it's like a perfectly streetable, will never be annoying, smooth. It's a perfect street exhaust, in my opinion. So Cobb is in the books. Let's get some sounds of it from the outside of the car, and we'll go on to the next one. So I can smell clutch, first of all. Or actually, that's probably fresh exhaust burning, to be honest. That is what that is, actually. But I was just going to say that the wide open throttle pull with the windows down, money. It sounds awesome with the windows down. So perfect sounding exhaust, perfect mild sounding exhaust. Okay, so we forgot to weigh the Cobb exhaust before we put it on the car. So we are weighing it now after we took it off the car. It weighs 35 pounds dead on. So that's an 8.8 pound savings over the stock exhaust. So it's a little bit of a weight decrease. Not a bad thing. Okay, so we got the Injen SES, Super SES, whatever that means. Catback up next, so we'll take this down and start to work on this one. Gasket's a little bit nicer. It looks like some, you know, roughly the same hardware. It's not that kind of zinc plated or whatever that is, galvanized look that the Cobb has, but it does have some nicer gaskets on the Injen kit, so noted. Okay, so this is the Injen setup. Quite a bit different looking than the Cobb. Just, you know, some of the sections are polished, the tips are burnt back here. The flanges are a little bit different. They're kind of like this machined flange, like cutout machined flange. It's not just a flat flange, but still nice and thick by the bolts and everything and by the sides. Otherwise it's 3 inches. One thing to note, and I don't think the Cobb is this way, I can't quite remember, but it does neck down right here where it meets the downpipe. You can tell it goes down to 2.5 just to meet the flange. Okay, so I just checked. The Cobb does not neck down. It is 3 inches straight through. So slight difference there on the Injen. Now a lot of exhausts do this. I anticipate the Borla to do this, and maybe the AFE. A lot of exhaust manufacturers do that just to make the flow really smooth, and so that the flange is made up perfectly on factory style, you know, connecting exhaust parts like this one is the downpipe. I would say that's not really a big deal for the stock turbo and mild upgraded turbo guys. I would say if you're going for 400, 450, 500 for sure, that's probably not what you want. You probably do want at least a 3-inch straight through exhaust. So 2 resonators right here back to back in the first straight section, which is kind of unique. That's kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that, but I suppose that'll control sound a good amount. So looking forward to seeing what this one sounds like. Let's put it on the car. So we do have to reuse the stock gasket. Luckily, it is a multi-layer steel gasket, so it looks pretty durable. I'd probably suggest getting a new one if you have a high mileage car and you're putting on this exhaust. This is probably okay, but we're, you know, for the purposes of this video, we're just gonna throw this thing back on here, right here. And then the other flanges will get the 3 gaskets that the kit came with. So yeah, reuse, keep this in good shape in case you have to reuse it. All right, so the Injen is on. As you can see, the burnt tips on the back. That's a big style difference between the Cobb and this one, but it's a little bit trickier to install than the Cobb. I thought it looked like it was going to be maybe even a little bit easier, but it actually, I think, was a tiny bit harder. So we're in the car, taking it around the block with the Injen, and it's definitely louder. There's no question about it. A lot more throatiness to it. Doesn't sound bad by any means. I haven't gone watt yet, and I haven't cruised down the road to see if there's any kind of rasp or anything, but it sounds pretty good. Yeah, it definitely has that, like, that kind of signature, kind of loud note right when you come into boost in the STs. You know, we've heard so many on our dyno by now, and certain exhausts kind of expose that. And this one definitely, you can hear that a little bit more. It sounds pretty good though. I don't hate it. It definitely exposes a lot more sound than the Cobb does. It's louder than the Cobb. It's got those two resonators, but they're pretty light resonators. They're not very thick, not very heavy. So this is definitely louder. Sounds good though. It's got a nice throaty tone. I like it. I don't dislike it at all. Like I said in the other video, I'm kind of a fan of the quieter stuff. That's the old man starting to come out in me. But this does sound pretty good, so it's better than I expected. So this is an interesting exhaust. I don't have a ton of experience with it myself personally. We've sold, you know, a handful of these, but I've never heard it myself, like in the car by myself. So I like it. It's better than what I thought it would be, and I think this is a perfect exhaust if you probably want a louder exhaust but don't want to upgrade the downpipe. If you want like more sound without doing a full turbo back exhaust, this would be a great upgrade. Like with the Cobb, when I first started it up, it's like it almost sounds stock. Like it's not that much louder than stock. This one, from the time you start it up, idling, cruising, you know it's there. You know your exhaust is upgraded just everywhere you go, and whatever RPM situation and load situation you have, you know you have an exhaust on the car. So if you're into that, this is a good exhaust for you. So you know, big difference between this and the Cobb for sure. So glad we did those back to back. We're going to turn off the car, let it cool down, and do our third exhaust. Yeah. Okay, so we are on our third exhaust. We're gonna do the AWE Touring. I think this thing comes in multiple configurations with the track system that does not have the muffler, I think, and then there's a muffler, and then there's a muffler and a resonator, I think. Anyway, this is the Touring. So AWE is pretty good with keeping the sound pretty civil while keeping it you know, nice and throaty. So excited for this one. 304 stainless steel. You'll notice that the welds on the AWE, they're MIG welded. It doesn't look as pretty, but the MIG welding is perfectly okay. You never see this thing under the car anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but it does look a little bit uglier, I will admit. But there you go. That was actually a lot easier than the first two. Like this is all one big section right here, and you come in through this way. With the other two, you came in through this direction and kind of had to bend back the heat shielding a little bit. This thing doesn't make use of that kind of rogue hanger in there. So this thing just like pops straight through there super easy. So that's one easier thing so far. But the slip joints are probably going to be a pain in the ass. So this one's going to reuse the factory gasket as well. And so far this thing has gone on really fast, super easy so far. So I might get out the door pretty quickly on this one. Okay, so we're all done with the AWE Touring. Super easy to install. However, the tips are really close to the bumper. They're sitting up there pretty good. And I'm actually having a little bit of a hard time getting these tips clamped onto the exhaust. You know, I could probably mess around with them. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but they are a tiny bit loose even after tightening these on here. So I think I might need to play with those a little bit more. But it's on. It fits pretty good. It fits really good, actually. And it is easier to install the piping than the other two so far. So let's get it on the ground and go catch the sound.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is an interesting exhaust. I kind of anticipated a little bit more quiet exhaust from this AWE Touring. It's louder than I expected. It's actually pretty aggressive sounding. It's pretty throaty. So kind of curious to see what it sounds like going wide open throttle, but sounds good so far. Just starting up and revving it a little bit. It does have a little bit of pops and bangs when you're when the revs are coming down. With no load on the car when you're just idling and the revs are coming down. So okay, that's definitely the loudest one we put on so far. This is like typical loud ST kind of style of sound here. Let's see if we can get some windows down sound. Yeah, this is definitely like how a lot of louder STs have this kind of character to it. It's not raspy, which is nice. Some loud STs can be really raspy. This is not raspy at all, if you ask me. Maybe a touch, but it's pretty aggressive, especially for having a stock downpipe. This one comes in at 29.6. That is pretty light compared to the other two, which are lighter also. But this one's coming in, yeah, 29.6. Over 13 pounds weight savings on this one. Actually 14, so 14 pounds. So this is the lightest one so far. Good deal. We're gonna put the last exhaust for part 1 on right now, and then we will be done. Let's do one more. Alrighty, so the last exhaust we're doing for part 1 is going to be the Borla exhaust. So fundamentally, this is a slightly different exhaust than what all the others will be, and that is that it's 2.5-inch piping. And that's, the rest are 3 inches. Now, like, the first thing that you would say is, well, why would they do something like that? It's kind of like closer to stock. It's not a huge upgrade in piping size. at the end of the day, you know, some exhausts are chosen for sound and quality, which a Borla does have. They've always had like really nice sounding mufflers. They've always made pretty good kits. They're super popular in the domestic world for V8 stuff and truck stuff and all that. They do make a really good exhaust, but they just focus on a different type of exhaust system. This is probably going to be a little bit more for the guys that will probably stick to stock turbo or a small upgraded turbo, kind of like what we have on the car right now, which is that Garrett Power Max. If you're going for like GTX 2867 or higher, like 400 wheel horsepower or more, I probably would stay away from this exhaust. You just want as much flow out of the exhaust as you possibly can get on a turbo car, especially at that point. So the 2.5, it's going to be completely fine for a stock turbo or a turbo like what we have, the Garrett. So actually, this is a lot easier than I thought. It just kind of looked a little bit weird. I was taking kind of the philosophy of the others where you had to like snake it all the way through, but this really just barely kind of pokes through, and it actually comes out right above the control arm. So it doesn't kind of curve back down like the others did. So it really doesn't require a lot of snaking through there. So this is easier than I originally thought. So no problem installing this one at all, it looks like so far.
Cool.
All set, ready to bolt her up. Watch your head there, cameraman. So this actually probably has, just like my initial thought, probably the best fitment so far, or at least the easiest to just get it to just go up and sit where it needs to go. So yeah, the Borla looks good, nice and tucked in there, plenty of space between the bumper and the tips here, nice big rolled edge tips here, and we're ready to put it on the road. Let's go. So initial impression is on startup, it's probably right in between the most aggressive and the least aggressive we've done so far. It's got a little bit of a punch to it, but not disgusting, you know, not raspy. It's kind of nice. Part throttle and taking off and cruising, like, it's pretty tame. You can't hear it too much right now. You get on it a little bit and you can hear it, but I expected the Borla to be tuned pretty well. They tune their exhaust pretty nicely. Yeah, nothing crazy, but it's definitely there with some part throttle acceleration there. Definitely comes alive at peak torque, and then it kind of smooths out and quiets out as the RPMs go up. So this is a nice one. This is not as quiet as the Cobb and not nearly as aggressive as the AWE Touring so far. So I think this one is a perfectly streetable exhaust with the stock downpipe. Perfectly streetable, not annoying at all. sounds pretty good, so I like it. Okay, so we just got wrapped up with the Borla, which I enjoyed a lot. I actually really like that exhaust. I think that is a solid kit. Nothing too much about it, nothing too little. It's right in the middle, and it sounds good, it sounds aggressive, but it's tame and it's civil, it's not crazy. So I really like the Borla. I like it more than I expected, for sure. I had an idea though. I think we should take the car, we were talking about doing like power demonstrations and stuff and seeing what a 3-inch exhaust can do. Given that this is a 2.5-inch exhaust, we're gonna take the opportunity to end part 1 with a baseline of what the 2.5-inch exhaust is. And we'll actually overlay that versus what the stock exhaust was too. So we'll be able to see a back-to-back-to-back comparison of a stock exhaust, 2.5, and then 3-inch, if there's any differences on the turbo setup that we have, or just, you know, with all the parts that we have on the car right now, which is not a lot. So I got Alan. We're gonna get the car on the dyno here, and we're gonna see what this 2.5-inch exhaust makes. So let's go. Folks, so we just got done with our dyno runs, and a little bit of a surprise, but at the end of the day, we're interested in full disclosure here. We actually lost power throughout the entire rev range, power and torque. So you can see up here. So what this is the last time that we were on the dyno, the third pull after the last mod we did, which was the intake, the Mishimoto intake. Then we did the exhaust systems, and this is pull 3 on the intake, and then pull 3 on the exhaust modification. So both on the third pulls, this is exactly what they did. So the curves actually follow each other just like normal, like they're the same curve shape, but with the exhaust it just dropped down a little bit. So we lost actually a good chunk of horsepower and torque here, which is kind of disappointing. But at the end of the day, you know, that's kind of what we did this for, is to see what the 2.5-incher would do. I'm not so sure you would get this exact result every single time you're on the dyno, every single day, but just in this one scenario we did. And so yeah, there you go. We're gonna test the 3-inch on the next video.
Should have done the Composer delete.
All right, we are all done with exhaust. I'm sick of touching exhaust, to be honest, so I'm not even going to touch this thing for the next 2 weeks. We're going to hand it off to Alan next week for at least shooting, and I'm going to finally let him do what he's been begging me to do on this car, which is the Composer delete. Yes! Along with another you know, handful of mods. We're going to do some budget mods and show you guys some cool stuff you can do for very little money. Anyway, like, subscribe, let us know what you think in the comments of each one of these exhausts. If we don't get 2,000 more subscribers at the end of this video, we're not doing part 2, so get on it.